A checkpoint on the Tokaido Road, spring 1650. Guards stop every traveler. Papers checked. Faces memorized. Names recorded in ledgers that track every soul moving through Japan's surveillance state. A figure approaches, wearing a large woven basket over his entire head. Face completely erased. Identity dissolved. He carries a bamboo flute and wears the robes of a Komuso, monk of nothingness. The guards straighten instinctively, not from military discipline, but something deeper. Fear mixed with reverence. They step aside without questions. 3 days later, a secret meeting is compromised. Guard rotations documented with surgical precision. Messenger routes mapped completely. No one suspects the holy man who stood motionless on the corner for 6 hours, playing haunting melodies. This is Komuso, in the deadly taxonomy of Natori Masazumi, author of the 17th century ninja manual, Shoninki, the faceless monks who achieved what no other disguise could. Legal permission to be completely anonymous while moving freely through Japan's most paranoid surveillance state. Today we decode the most psychologically sophisticated mask in ninja history. Because while other operatives had to earn trust through their faces, Komuso gained trust by refusing to show any face at all. Komuso weren't ninja invention. They were legitimate Fuke-shū sect members practicing blowing meditation, achieving enlightenment through shakuhachi flute playing while wandering in complete anonymity. But Natori Masazumi saw what others missed, a religious practice granting legal permission to be unidentifiable was the ultimate intelligence asset in an era where showing your face meant being tracked, remembered, controlled. Komuso identity operated through 3 psychological paradoxes that made it devastatingly effective despite its obvious strangeness. Paradox 1. Visibility through invisibility. The tengai made Komuso instantly recognizable as a category, while making individuals completely unidentifiable. You remembered seeing a Komuso, never that specific person. Paradox 2. Trust through anonymity. Normal logic suggests faceless strangers trigger maximum suspicion. Religious context inverted this. The basket signals spiritual authority demanding respect, not interrogation. Paradox 3. Access through withdrawal. By publicly rejecting social interaction, Komuso gains permission to be present anywhere, without explaining themselves or engaging with authority. Humans anchor memory to faces. We remember expressions, eyes, micro-reactions. Remove the face, and recall becomes impossible. A Komuso under tengai gets filed as a monk, rather than this monk. Category, not individual. Generic spiritual presence, not specific threat. Natori's observation cuts like steel. The man whose face is never seen cannot be remembered committing what no witness can swear they observed. That's not spiritual poetry. That's operational mathematics. And it reveals why the tengai wasn't just religious symbol. It was engineered anonymity. At surface level, the tengai looks absurd. A woven basket worn over the head like children playing dress-up. Comical, almost theatrical in its strangeness. From intelligence perspective, it's one of the most sophisticated identity suppression devices ever created by any culture in any era. The tengai blocks all facial features completely. No eyes, no mouth, no expressions, no micro-reactions. For observers, this eliminates almost every avenue human brains use for individual recognition and threat assessment. Human visual processing treats faces as highest priority objects. We're evolutionarily programmed to read faces for emotion, intention, identity. When that system receives no usable data, it drops interest unless direct threat indicators appear. Komuso body language reinforced this psychological dismissal. Head bowed, shoulders slightly curved inward, movements slow and deliberate. Every signal broadcasts no danger, no ambition, nothing worth tracking or remembering. From inside, the tengai wasn't blindness. Carefully spaced weave patterns allowed horizontal vision bands while preventing anyone from seeing in. This asymmetric perception was devastating for surveillance. A Komuso could observe everything while remaining completely unobserved. One-way mirror made from straw and religious authority. Guards who might challenge someone obviously watching would feel instinctive reluctance to disturb a faceless monk engaged in spiritual practice. The religious context created protective bubble around surveillance activities. Inside the basket, normal ego patterns break down. No facial expressions to maintain. No social cues to process. No need to react appropriately because no one sees reactions. That psychological freedom is operationally dangerous. It lets ninja watch without being watched, judge without being judged, creating emotional detachment perfect for intelligence work. With face removed, what remains is pure function. And the primary function was simple: see everything, be seen by no one. But seeing means nothing without movement, and that's where Komuso held advantages no other disguise could touch: the freedom to walk through walls made of law and suspicion. Under Tokugawa rule, travel was prison. Peasants stayed tied to land. Merchants needed permits. Samurai required written orders from superiors. Komuso walked through it all like ghosts passing through solid matter. Fuke-shū sect held extraordinary privileges: travel rights between domains, exemption from face-showing requirements, religious protection against secular interrogation. This wasn't ninja manipulation. It was legitimate religious privilege dating centuries back, based on principle that spiritual seekers who had renounced identity shouldn't prove that identity to worldly authorities. The Tokugawa surveillance state, paranoid about tracking every movement, maintained this exemption from fear of religious backlash and respect for Buddhist tradition. Result: the only people in Japan who could legally travel between domains without showing faces were Komuso monks. That's not accident. That's strategic gold. Major roads between Edo, Kyoto, Osaka, Japan's most monitored routes, recorded every traveler with obsessive precision. Except Komuso, who passed through without individual identification. Guards simply noted, "One Komuso passed," without names, descriptions, or purposes. A ninja in Komuso disguise could conduct reconnaissance along critical routes, carry messages between domains, coordinate operations across regions, all while remaining invisible to Japan's intelligence apparatus. The very system designed to see everything had blind spots shaped exactly like religious privilege. And that blind spot walked freely through the most secure spaces in the country. But mobility alone wasn't the weapon. The real advantage was what happened when they stopped moving and became living surveillance equipment. Most espionage requires movement, slipping through lines, infiltrating spaces, gathering intelligence through action. Komuso inverted this completely. They achieved maximum intelligence yield by never moving at all. A Komuso could stand on strategic street corner for an entire day, practicing meditation through music, while conducting systematic observation of target buildings. Religious context transformed suspicious loitering into expected spiritual practice. People dropped coins and thanked him for blessing the area with sacred music. 6 hours of stationary observation could yield guard shift patterns, visitor identification, meeting schedules, security procedures, traffic anomalies indicating unusual activity. No infiltrator sneaking inside could match that level of sustained, systematic observation without detection. The Komuso was surveillance camera centuries before cameras existed. If seeing how ninja weaponized religious anonymity is changing how you think about identity and surveillance, hit like and subscribe. And if you want deeper study of real historical text behind these techniques, check the ninja books in our description and comments. Worth every page. Bridges create choke points where travel cannot avoid passing specific observation points. The Komuso stationed at bridge approach became information funnel. He could track which domain banners appeared with what frequency, armor condition revealing war readiness, goods being transported indicating economic activity, gossip from slow-moving travelers. The beauty? He didn't follow targets or risk exposure through movement. He let the world pass in front of him while appearing to do nothing but play music. Natori's principle emerges clearly. Power exists in staying where you are until others forget you are there. Then all movement around you becomes intelligence that writes itself. But stationary surveillance was just foundation. The real weapon was the music itself and what it could hide, communicate, and enable. The bamboo flute wasn't just religious requirement or cover activity. In ninja hands, it became sophisticated communication system disguised as spiritual practice. Continuous shakuhachi melodies created sound curtain around the performer. People nearby heard music first, environment second. That's critical for intelligence gathering. When brain tags stimulus as background music, it stops analyzing other auditory information deeply. Conversations feel private because the audible foreground is that monk's playing. Komuso often positioned near walls, gates, meeting spots where voices carried. People assumed the flute music made their discussions more private. Actually, it only made them less conscious of being overheard. The irony was perfect. The sound, meant to provide acoustic privacy, actually enabled acoustic surveillance by creating false sense of security. Different honkyoku, solo pieces, could encode different messages. Specific melodies approaching checkpoints might mean, "I am cleared, news received, no escort needed." Melodies are harder to intercept than written messages. You must recognize tune, style, and subtle variations, not just words. This created communication channel that even sophisticated counterintelligence couldn't easily crack. The Shoninki doesn't publish these codes directly. Natori was too careful for that. But his language about music as voice that speaks without words makes the application obvious. Unlike other monks carrying prayer beads or rosaries, Komuso held something both religious and physically formidable. A solid bamboo shakuhachi is functionally a club. At close range, breaks bones, crushes windpipes, blocks sword strikes with brutal efficiency. Certain Komuso schools taught combat systems using the flute as primary weapon, parrying, choking, striking vital points, all while maintaining spiritual appearance. If a harmless, faceless monk can stand arm's reach from armed guards and no one checks his hands for weapon calluses, that's not security flaw. That's brilliance of the mask. But physical capabilities were secondary to the deeper psychological weapon. The terror of interacting with someone who had no face, no name, no identity, anchors that normal human psychology could process safely. The Komuso story isn't just ninja technique. It's a case study in how effective disguises attract multiple user groups until they collapse under their own success. After Sekigahara in 1600, hundreds of thousands of samurai lost masters and became rōnin, trained killers with no legal employment. Komuso identity became attractive refuge. Former warriors could disappear from official records while maintaining mobility and avoiding persecution. By the 1650s, many Komuso were ex-samurai rather than genuine spiritual seekers, martial bearing beneath religious robes, political interests disguised as meditation. The sect transformed from spiritual practice into intelligence infrastructure, not through ninja infiltration, but through social pressures that made anonymity valuable to multiple groups simultaneously. Tokugawa authorities weren't blind. They recognized that Komuso anonymity was being systematically exploited by criminals, spies, and political dissidents. New regulations required Komuso to carry certification documents from authorized temples and restricted which institutions could ordain new members. But regulations couldn't eliminate the core advantage. Komuso still didn't show faces, and documents could be forged more easily than facial recognition could be defeated. The crackdown actually helped remaining ninja operations by reducing total Komuso numbers, making each one less suspicious while maintaining anonymity benefits. Early Meiji government formally abolished Fuke-shū entirely. Official reasoning involved religious reform, but effect was clear. Institutionalized faceless wanderers ended. The disguise had become too successful. Too many players, ninja, rōnin, criminals, political dissidents, had adopted it. What killed Komuso wasn't counterintelligence or security improvements. It was popularity among exactly the groups that made authorities nervous about anonymous, mobile individuals. Despite Tengai's psychological barriers, skilled counterintelligence developed methods for identifying fake Komuso before operations succeeded. Real Komuso possessed shakuhachi mastery that couldn't be faked through brief training. Years of practice created specific tone quality, breath control, spiritual depth in playing. Play Kyorei immediately. Genuine practitioners begin without hesitation. Muscle memory takes over. Fakes hesitate, calculate, reveal inadequate preparation through delayed response. More subtly, observers could detect play-in posture, breathing patterns, unconscious body language that authentic meditation practice developed over years. You trained at Ichigetsuji in Edo? Then you know Master Kinko's particular teaching method and his habit of correcting students' breathing during morning practice. Real disciples knew personal details, inside references, human texture of temple relationships. Spies knew official histories but missed authentic emotional connections. Cross-referencing claimed affiliations with actual temple records could expose false identities. though this required official authority most guards lacked. The behavioral consistency test. Genuine spiritual seekers showed consistent disinterest in worldly concerns, politics, military affairs, strategic information. They focused entirely on internal spiritual journey. Ninja sometimes reveal themselves through subtle tells. Too much interest in guard positions, too precise observation of defensive arrangements, too convenient positioning for surveillance. The key was duration. Authentic Komuso might notice worldly things briefly, but their attention always returned to spiritual focus. Spies maintained worldly focus, disguised as spiritual practice. Of all Shichi Hō De disguises, Komuso raised the darkest philosophical questions. Here, ninja didn't just exploit human greed, faith, or vanity. They exploited the concept of spiritual emptiness itself. True Komuso doctrine emphasized mu, nothingness, ego dissolution through sound, letting self vanish into flute tone to approach enlightenment. Ninja usage inverted this completely. The outside self vanished for others, while inside, hyper-attentive ego watched everything. Emptiness became one-way mirror for strategic observation. Natori hints at discomfort. Some masks consume the man behind them. When you pretend to be nothing long enough, nothing may be all that remains. Long-term Komuso operations demanded living as no one for months or years. Face always covered, name rarely spoken. Personal relationships minimal to maintain cover. Some operatives lost clear sense of original identity. When a man has worn nothing long enough, he may find there is no one left to remove the basket at mission's end. This wasn't romantic mysticism. It was clinical description of identity erosion. Occupational hazard unique to disguises requiring continuous negation of personal existence. Other disguises maintained connection between operative and actions. Merchants left business records. Monks had temple affiliations. Performers were remembered. Komuso achieved complete disconnection. A faceless monk could commit any act and walk away with no one able to identify or track the perpetrator. This created moral hazard. When actions carry no identity consequences, normal behavioral restraints weaken or disappear entirely. Natori's warning is characteristically blunt. The man whose face is never seen may believe his actions carry no weight. This thinking leads to cruelty without purpose. Yet despite these dangers, the disguise's tactical advantages were so overwhelming that it remained an essential tool in ninja arsenal until external forces destroyed it completely. The checkpoint fades behind him. The Komuso walks deeper into Japan's interior. Faceless, unrecorded, invisible to the surveillance system that tracks everyone else with obsessive precision. Behind the tengai could be anyone. Genuine spiritual seeker pursuing enlightenment, rōnin fleeing justice, or ninja conducting intelligence operations that will reshape political balance across domains. The guards will never know. The system, designed to see everything, has blind spots shaped exactly like religious privilege. And that blind spot walks freely through Japan's most secure spaces. Komuso proves Shoninki's most unsettling principle. Perfect invisibility isn't hiding from sight, but hiding behind something people are culturally programmed not to look at directly. Until next time, remember the Komuso equation. When you can't see someone's face, your brain fills assumptions based on context. Control the context. Control what people believe about the invisible person standing right in front of them.